An invitation to deeper understanding. The Genesis story of Adam and Eve has long stood as a foundational account of human choice, morality, and consequence, inviting interpretations that have spanned centuries and cultures. At its core lies an encounter with free will, portrayed through the fateful decision to eat from the tree of knowledge, a decision often framed in stark terms of obedience versus defiance, good versus evil, or blessing versus curse. But these dichotomous and absolutist interpretations can constrain our understanding, obscuring the layered dynamics of free will and the nuanced interrelationships between divine guidance and human autonomy. To truly grasp the depth of this narrative, we must look beyond its surface and ask, what larger principles are at play, and what questions about free will are embedded within? By limiting the Genesis account to a simple opposition, an act of rebellion punished by exile, we risk reducing a complex narrative to a moral caution and little more. This reductionist view presents humanity's first exercise of free will as a singular act of disobedience, inviting the conclusion that the nature of free will is inherently flawed, or that human autonomy stands in fundamental opposition to divine intent. Yet such a binary interpretation leaves many questions unresolved. What, for instance, is the role of divine guidance in human decision-making if free will is meant to be autonomous? Why, if this choice was inevitable or predetermined, would a benevolent creator grant it? And how might the principles of divine order and positive orientation fit into the consequences of this decision? These are the questions that can help deepen our understanding of Genesis. In place of binary judgments, we may find a richer narrative, one in which free will emerges not as an isolated act of defiance, but as a dynamic process shaped by divine order and constructive affirmation. This perspective encourages us to view Genesis as an invitation to understand free will as an unfolding journey, one in which the exercise of autonomy interacts with guiding principles that transcend simple obedience. Our journey will revisit Genesis through the triadic lens of life, logos, and light, uncovering how free will finds expression within and through divine will. We will see how each choice, including that first choice in Eden, exists within a broader framework that harmonizes autonomy with divine structure and life-affirming purpose. This approach reframes Genesis, revealing not just a moment of moral consequence, but a model for understanding free will as a relational, structured, and positive process. Through this exploration, we will seek to resolve these essential questions, illuminating a view of free will that aligns personal autonomy with divine coherence and flourishing purpose. Life, logos, and light. To understand free will as part of a broader metaphysical framework, we turn to three essential principles: life, logos, and light. Together, they do not simply represent facets of divine will, their interaction brings it into being, revealing divine will as an emergent system that both shapes and is shaped by individual free will. In this view, free will becomes a dynamic, interdependent process, integral to divine will's unfolding through autonomy, order, and affirmation. Life is the expression of individual free will, the capacity of each person to make autonomous choices that shape existence. It embodies personal agency, enabling each individual to act with self-determination and unique intent. Life is not merely a passive element, it is active and generative, infusing the divine will with the diversity and creativity that arise from personal choice. The free will of individuals becomes integral to divine will, adding depth, uniqueness, and a constantly evolving character to the whole. Logos functions as the principle of divine reason and order, providing structure within which individual free will can operate coherently. Through logos, divine logic establishes the parameters, natural, social, and ethical, that guide and shape individual choices, harmonizing them into patterns that reflect universal principles. Logos enables free will to operate within a structured, interconnected system, framing life within a broader context that honors both autonomy and alignment. It is through logos that divine will retains coherence, manifesting as a system capable of encompassing all individual wills in harmony. Light introduces the force of positive affirmation, orienting free will toward growth, connection, and life-affirming purposes. Light inspires choices that foster well-being, resilience, and collective flourishing, affirming paths that are not only possible but constructive. It is light that provides divine will with its expansive, optimistic direction, guiding individual wills toward an ever-evolving goodness. By imbuing actions with a sense of purpose and shared benefit, light orients both individual and collective will toward outcomes that nurture and affirm life itself. In this triadic model, life, logos, and light create a system where divine will and individual wills are mutually reinforcing, existing in dynamic balance. Each choice, each expression of free will becomes a thread woven into the broader tapestry of divine will, shaping it even as it provides the framework within which autonomy can thrive. Far from isolated, free will emerges as a process of alignment and affirmation, an evolving journey within interdependent structures that cultivate coherence, growth, and relational integrity. Through this model, we find that divine will is not a distant ideal, but an active, emergent reality born from the harmonious interaction of autonomy, structure, and life-affirming purpose. Core components of free will. To understand free will in all its dimensions, we begin with autonomy, external constraints, and relational dynamics. These elements interact to shape human agency within a complex and interconnected world, each contributing uniquely to the nature and scope of choice. At the heart of free will lies autonomy, the capacity of individuals to make decisions that reflect their inner motivations. Autonomy is the essential essence of free will, representing the individual's ability to act with intention and self-determination. It reflects the idea that, to be meaningful, choices must be directed by the will of the individual, unencumbered by excessive external force. This classical understanding of free will assumes that for a decision to truly reflect autonomy, it must originate from within, rooted in personal beliefs, desires, and values rather than solely from outside influences. In Scripture, autonomy is portrayed in the way God grants individuals the freedom to choose their paths, even when those choices lead them away from divine will. This freedom is evident in the stories of figures such as Jonah, who, despite being called to deliver a message to Nineveh, initially chooses to flee. Jonah's decision is autonomous, yet it ultimately intertwines with greater constraints and relational influences, illustrating that while autonomy is at the core of free will, it does not function in a vacuum. It is exercised within a broader network of influences that shape and sometimes limit it. Free will, however, does not operate without boundaries. Social, cultural, and environmental factors establish a framework of external constraints within which autonomy is expressed. These constraints shape but do not negate free will, instead providing structure and guiding individual choices within certain limits. External constraints include societal laws, norms, economic circumstances, and cultural traditions, factors that guide or restrict our decisions while reflecting shared values and collective understandings of acceptable behavior. For example, societal laws limit certain behaviors to protect public safety and uphold social order, thereby restricting specific actions while simultaneously promoting others. The story of Moses and the Israelites receiving the Ten Commandments reflects this interaction between autonomy and constraints. The commandments serve as a moral and societal structure, influencing the actions of the Israelites by setting boundaries aligned with divine values. These laws do not eliminate the Israelites' free will. Instead, they establish an ethical framework within which individuals can exercise their autonomy in ways that are socially harmonious and spiritually aligned. The exercise of free will is also profoundly relational, as choices rarely exist in isolation from others. Each individual's decisions unfold within a social context, often in response to or in cooperation with the decisions and behaviors of others. This interdependence introduces a relational dynamic to free will, where choices are made not only from personal intention but also with an awareness of others' needs, values, and goals. This relational aspect highlights that free will is frequently conditional, shaped by the collective dynamics of community and the interwoven nature of human relationships. This conditionality is especially evident in the New Testament, where Jesus' teachings emphasize the importance of relational choices grounded in love and mutual support. For example, the call to love your neighbor as yourself places an ethical dimension on free will, urging individuals to make choices that consider the well-being of others. Relational dynamics shape free will in a way that prompts individuals to act not solely for personal benefit, but with a regard for communal harmony, emphasizing the relational nature of autonomous choices. Thus, autonomy, external constraints, and relational dynamics each contribute to the multi-dimensional nature of free will. While autonomy provides the basis for self-determined action, constraints frame and guide these actions, and relational dynamics expand free will into a collaborative, interdependent process. The triadic framework for free will. With these core components established, we can now explore their interrelations through a triadic framework, where autonomy, constraints, and relational dynamics each influence and reinforce the others. This triadic structure allows us to examine free will not as a series of isolated choices, but as a dynamic interplay of influences that shape individual agency over time. The interaction between autonomy and external constraints reflects a dynamic where individual choices adapt in response to societal structures, which themselves evolve to reflect collective expressions of autonomy. This relationship demonstrates that autonomy is not absolute. Rather, it is situated within a framework of social and cultural norms that shape its expression. Conversely, collective expressions of autonomy can inspire changes within these external constraints, leading to social evolution. A historical example of this is the civil rights movement, where collective expressions of individual autonomy, such as the refusal to comply with discriminatory laws, catalyzed shifts in societal norms and legal frameworks. In this way, free will manifests as an interactive process where personal and societal elements continually adapt to one another. The push for legal changes that reflect a more equitable society shows how individual autonomy can challenge and redefine constraints, creating a feedback loop between personal freedom and the structures within which it operates. The connection between external constraints and relational dynamics reveals how societal norms shape collective choices, creating a ripple effect that influences individual free will. Social structures such as laws and cultural expectations provide a shared framework that guides interpersonal interactions, ensuring that relational dynamics function within a predictable and often mutually beneficial system. At the same time, these collective choices can redefine social norms, as individuals and communities advocate for change based on shifting relational values. An example of this is the spread of early Christianity within the Roman Empire, where communal values and relational commitments challenged existing norms and gradually influenced the broader societal structure. As early Christians practiced and promoted values of compassion, charity, and equality, these values began to influence the societal expectations within communities. Over time, these relational dynamics contributed to broader social changes, reflecting how collective free will has the power to reshape external constraints, creating an evolving framework that reflects shared ideals. Finally, the relationship between relational dynamics and autonomy highlights how free will develops within a web of interdependent choices. While autonomy is rooted in individual intention, it is shaped and sometimes limited by the relational context, as individuals navigate personal choices in response to the actions and needs of others. This interdependency emphasizes that free will is not an isolated exercise. It often involves balancing personal desires with relational responsibilities. An illustration of this is found in the parable of the Good Samaritan, where the autonomy of the Samaritan is exercised within a relational context that considers the needs of another. Here, free will is both personal and communal. The Samaritan's choice to act compassionately transcends mere personal intention, creating a ripple effect of kindness and moral responsibility within the broader community. This dynamic exemplifies how relational contexts shape individual autonomy, leading to choices that are both self-determined and socially resonant. Together, these interrelationships, autonomy and constraints and relational dynamics and autonomy, reveal free will as an interconnected process. Rather than existing in isolation, free will emerges through the dynamic balance of these elements, each reinforcing and refining the others. Through this triadic framework, we see free will as a harmonized process where autonomy, structure, and relational interdependence shape the journey of human agency in a coherent and interconnected world. Logos is structured, aligned decision-making. Logos, the principle of divine reason, acts as a structuring force that guides and clarifies human decision-making. Within the context of free will, Logos does not impose limits but offers coherence, providing individuals with a framework through which to align their choices with broader patterns of order and meaning. By invoking Logos, free will moves beyond mere reaction or impulse. It becomes an intentional process, shaped by reflection and an awareness of interdependencies. In the biblical narrative, the influence of Logos is most clearly demonstrated in moments where individuals are called to align their actions with divine reason, as seen in Solomon's pursuit of wisdom. When Solomon prays for understanding to govern his people, he isn't asking merely for knowledge, but for the discernment to judge rightly, to act in alignment with divine order. His wisdom, often called the wisdom of Solomon, exemplifies Logos in action, guiding his decisions toward justice, clarity, and the greater good. Through Logos, individual choices gain structure, allowing autonomy, external constraints, and relational dynamics to harmonize. By bringing reflection and discernment to each choice, Logos functions as a lens that clarifies intentions, encourages ethical consistency, and aligns personal will with values that serve both self and society. This alignment with divine order helps individuals find paths that resonate with truth, moving decision-making from impulsive, isolated choices toward thoughtful, reasoned actions that reinforce interconnectedness. Logos operates within each sub-triad to refine and elevate decision-making, promoting a balance between personal autonomy, societal structures, and relational harmony. Within the domain of personal autonomy, Logos encourages self-reflection, helping individuals discern their true motives and align their desires with deeper values. This self-reflection fosters self-awareness, guiding individuals to make choices that reflect their most meaningful aspirations rather than transient impulses. By aligning inner will with the principles of Logos, decisions gain a coherence that empowers individuals to act with purpose, allowing their choices to reflect enduring truths. For example, the Proverbs urge individuals to keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life, Proverbs 4:23, suggesting that true autonomy is fortified by a thoughtful alignment with divine wisdom. Logos also brings clarity to external constraints, encouraging individuals to understand, respect, and sometimes transform these boundaries. Instead of perceiving constraints as arbitrary limits, Logos helps individuals see them as part of a cohesive order that can foster personal and communal well-being. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus speaks of fulfilling the law, emphasizing that while laws provide structure, their true fulfillment lies in an internal alignment with divine intent. Logos then helps individuals engage with constraints thoughtfully, navigating them in ways that respect and sometimes elevate the principles these boundaries are intended to uphold. In relational dynamics, Logos fosters decisions that consider and often prioritize communal well-being. It reminds individuals that personal choices resonate through social relationships, creating interdependencies that benefit from thoughtful, aligned decisions. The biblical call to love your neighbor as yourself, Matthew 22:39, exemplifies this principle, Here, Logos guides choices toward mutual benefit, urging individuals to weigh the relational impacts of their actions and fostering a culture of mutual respect and care. In this way, Logos elevates free will into an intentional process that strengthens social bonds, creating a framework where relational integrity and individual autonomy are balanced and harmonized. By working through each of these sub-triads, Logos fosters decisions that are coherent, intentional, and aligned with a sense of divine order. In this way, Logos serves as the structural component of free will, guiding it away from impulsivity and toward choices that resonate with truth, justice, and harmony. Light is an affirmative and life-affirming influence. While Logos offers structure and alignment, light represents the life-affirming force that directs free will toward constructive, empathetic, and positive ends. Light infuses choice with a sense of hope, purpose, and encouragement, illuminating paths that nurture growth, fulfillment, and connection. Where Logos clarifies, light inspires, inviting individuals to pursue actions that bring forth goodness, compassion, and shared well-being. Light's role in free will is seen in moments throughout Scripture where individuals are called to act with kindness, compassion, and a recognition of shared humanity. Jesus' teachings, which often focus on love, forgiveness, and generosity, illustrate light as an active influence in human choice, encouraging decisions that reflect empathy and care. "You are the light of the world," he tells his followers, urging them to act in ways that reveal the goodness within, illuminating paths that uplift not only the self but also the community, Matthew 5:14-16. Through light, free will gains an orientation toward flourishing, directing choices toward outcomes that are life-affirming and constructive. Light urges individuals to view each decision as an opportunity to contribute to personal growth and collective harmony, transforming autonomy into a force that nurtures and uplifts. Within each sub-triad, light operates as a positive, affirming influence, encouraging choices that foster growth, connection, and well-being. In personal autonomy, light illuminates one's motivations and desires, encouraging individuals to focus on choices that are life-affirming and growth-oriented. This positive orientation deepens self-awareness, helping individuals discern between impulses that satisfy fleeting wants and actions that fulfill deeper needs. By enhancing the capacity for choice, light guides decisions that not only serve immediate needs, but also align with long-term well-being and purpose. The psalmist's words, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" Psalm 27:1. Emphasize light as a guiding presence that instills confidence and purpose, empowering individuals to make choices free from fear and grounded in positive intent. In relation to external constraints, light encourages individuals to view boundaries not merely as limitations, but as supportive frameworks that enable constructive action. Social norms and laws rooted in compassion and justice are seen as structures that enhance freedom, guiding choices that benefit both the individual and the community. Light reframes constraints as opportunities for growth and alignment with the greater good, inviting individuals to act within these frameworks to contribute positively to collective life. In this way, light supports decisions that respect societal norms while fostering compassion, kindness, and resilience. Light brings empathy and compassion into relational dynamics, fostering choices that strengthen communal bonds and uphold the dignity of others. It encourages individuals to recognize shared humanity and interdependence, guiding actions that promote mutual well-being and uplift others. The story of the Good Samaritan illustrates this influence. Despite social constraints that might discourage assistance, the Samaritan chooses to act out of empathy and compassion, embodying light as a force that transcends divisive boundaries. Through such choices, light directs relational free will toward constructive and compassionate outcomes, creating a ripple effect that reinforces communal well-being and ethical responsibility. By engaging each sub-triad, light infuses decision-making with positivity, empathy, and a vision of growth and flourishing. It elevates free will into a process that not only serves personal intent, but also resonates with communal harmony and shared purpose, creating pathways toward a fulfilled and interconnected existence. Genesis revisited through life, logos, and light. In the Genesis account, The story of Adam and Eve unfolds in the Garden of Eden, a setting imbued with life, logos, and light. Each aspect of the triad is embedded in the narrative, providing a framework through which we can understand their choice and the resulting consequences. Far from an arbitrary test of obedience, the story demonstrates how human free will interacts with divine guidance and the potential for alignment or divergence from that guidance. At the core of the Genesis story is the granting of free will to Adam and Eve, represented through the autonomy they have in choosing whether to eat from the tree of knowledge. God creates them with the ability to make decisions that stem from their own intentions and desires. In this sense, the garden represents life in its purest form, a place of freedom, potential, and the opportunity to act independently. When God tells Adam and Eve that they are free to eat from any tree in the garden, except the tree of knowledge, Genesis 2:16-17, he acknowledges their autonomy. This freedom to choose is a gift and a trust, reflecting God's respect for human agency. In this context, life is the foundation of the choice set before them, a test of autonomy where they can exercise free will, even if it involves diverging from divine intent. It is through their autonomous decision to eat the fruit that Adam and Eve experience the full weight of their free will, facing the consequences of a choice that they make independently, yet interdependently of divine guidance. Alongside the autonomy represented by life, logos appears as a structuring force that offers Adam and Eve a framework within which to exercise their free will. God's command regarding the tree of knowledge is not arbitrary. It reflects divine order and the boundaries that align with greater wisdom. Logos here represents a protective boundary, guiding Adam and Eve toward choices that promote harmony and growth within the parameters of divine wisdom. The presence of the tree of knowledge in Eden is itself a manifestation of Logos, symbolizing both a limit and a pathway to deeper understanding. When God instructs them not to eat from it, he provides a structure within which their autonomy can develop. This limit, shaped by divine order, is meant to direct them away from impulsive choices that might disrupt their alignment with God's design. However, the serpent's temptation introduces a counter-narrative suggesting a path that bypasses Logos, encouraging Adam and Eve to act without consideration of the structure provided. In this moment, their decision is shaped by autonomy but untethered from Logos. And this divergence from divine order leads to a cascade of consequences that disrupt their connection to the harmonious structure of the garden. Lastly, light functions as the life-affirming influence within the garden, directing choices toward growth, connection, and a shared sense of purpose. It embodies the affirmative potential of free will, encouraging decisions that align with flourishing and fulfillment. In the Genesis narrative, light appears as the invitation for Adam and Eve to live in a state of harmony, guided by trust, purpose, and communion with God. The serpent's temptation draws Adam and Eve away from this life-affirming orientation, appealing instead to pride and the promise of self-gain. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. Genesis 3:5. This suggestion lures them into a choice that moves away from the light-filled orientation of shared well-being and spiritual connection. Rather than choosing to grow within the alignment provided by light, they choose a path that temporarily disrupts their orientation toward divine affirmation. Their choice, while grounded in autonomy, diverges from the constructive influence of light, leading to an experience of separation rather than unity, self-realization at the cost of connectedness. When Adam and Eve eat the fruit, they experience the impact of a decision that is autonomous but out of alignment with Logos and light. In doing so, they move into a new state of awareness that brings both knowledge and vulnerability. The immediate consequences reveal the importance of alignment within the triadic structure. They realize their nakedness, a new awareness that speaks to a separation from the protective structure of Logos and the life-affirming influence of light. The experience of shame reflects the result of exercising autonomy without alignment, as they now bear the weight of their choices' consequences. God's response reflects both justice and mercy, aligning with the Logos and light that continue to shape divine will. While Adam and Eve must leave Eden, they are not abandoned. God clothes them, an act that restores a measure of dignity and prepares them for the life ahead, showing that light remains present even in the midst of consequence. Their journey forward is one of learning and adapting, where their choices must now reflect a deeper awareness of divine structure and purpose. Through this lens, the Genesis narrative illustrates free will as a process that operates within and is shaped by life, logos, and light. Each choice has consequences that either align with or diverge from divine intent, showing that free will is not a simple expression of autonomy, but a dynamic interaction with structure and positive orientation. In Eden, life, autonomy, was intended to coexist with logos, divine order, and light, affirming guidance, creating a state of harmony that allowed for growth and mutual fulfillment. The choice to act independently of logos and light disrupted this harmony, showing that while autonomy is central to free will, it reaches its highest expression when aligned with order and constructive affirmation. Thus, Genesis demonstrates that true free will is an act of balance, where human agency functions most fully within the interplay of life, logos, and light. This story encourages us to view autonomy not as an isolated gift, but as a capacity that flourishes best within a framework that guides and uplifts, inviting us to make choices that are both coherent and life-affirming, reflecting a unity with divine intent. Free will is a process of alignment and affirmation. At the heart of human existence lies the gift of free will, a dynamic capacity to make choices that shape our lives and the lives of others. Yet this gift is not merely the freedom to act as we please, it is an invitation to navigate the world with purpose, guided by the harmonizing forces of logos and light. Through our exploration, we have come to see free will not as an isolated power, but as a profound journey of alignment and affirmation where life, our autonomy, finds its highest expression through alignment with divine order, logos, and a constructive orientation, light. In this model, free will moves beyond simple autonomy to become an evolving process, one that transforms individual choices into acts of meaning and coherence. Logos offers the structure that helps us understand the boundaries and interconnections within which our choices unfold, providing clarity and aligning personal intentions with broader, enduring patterns. Logos, then, is the structure that grounds us, helping us discern paths that resonate with both personal and collective well-being. It allows autonomy to flourish without straying into chaos or impulsivity, rooting each choice in a shared framework of divine order. Light, as the life-affirming force, infuses free will with a sense of purpose and empathy, guiding us toward actions that uplift and contribute to the greater good. Light gives us a vision of what is possible, not merely what can be achieved for oneself, but what can be achieved in harmony with others and with the world. Where logos directs, light inspires, encouraging us to make choices that resonate with kindness, positivity, and the flourishing of life. Through light, we perceive free will as an opportunity to contribute to a constructive whole, transforming autonomy into an act of shared growth and resilience. Together, logos and light reveal free will as a harmonized process that brings autonomy, structure, and positive orientation into coherence. This model suggests that true freedom is not the mere absence of constraint, but the alignment of choice with purpose, truth, and well-being. Free will, understood in this way, is an ever-evolving journey, one in which each choice builds upon the last, shaping a path that reflects both our individuality and our interdependence. Just as Genesis shows the full triad of life, logos, and light working together to guide human agency, our own lives unfold within this same framework, where autonomy is most fully realized when it resonates with the structure and affirmation of divine will. Each choice, each relationship, and each interaction becomes an opportunity to align with these guiding principles, transforming free will into a pathway toward coherent, life-affirming states. Free will as relational, purposeful, and evolving. In closing, free will is not a static trait, but a relational journey that continually shapes and reshapes us. With Logos and light as our guides, our autonomy finds its place within a larger, divinely inspired narrative, one that seeks not just individual fulfillment, but collective harmony and growth. This perspective invites us to see free will as a responsibility, a chance to participate in the ongoing creation of a world that reflects both clarity and compassion, both order and possibility. As we move forward, may we embrace free will as a process of alignment and affirmation, choosing paths that harmonize autonomy, structure, and shared purpose. Let our decisions be more than isolated acts. Let them be steps along a journey that honors both our individual uniqueness and our shared humanity, illuminating a path of purpose, empathy, and coherence. In this way, free will becomes not merely a capacity to choose, but a sacred opportunity to align with the unfolding of divine will, contributing to a life and a world that resonate with truth, goodness, and light.